but they called Mike, and then that was me.
Who's the one that works on
Mike.
See?
See?
Right
Yeah.
there.
You know, where they have to
Jesus.
do this, for Lily and Jim, well, if you'll email them, then the whole apartment right there.
I used to live in there.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was really confused.
Oh, yeah, good guy.
It was-
Repeats.
Yeah, it was, it was over the house, yeah.
And then his newer child was at the end.
Like Keith's Corner. Yeah.
Okay, because that's what, like, how many
Yeah,
times
I
is
know,
available?
I know.
Because some places is Keith's Corner.
So like, this is the whole.
Okay.
Goodness.
She's. The whole family said.
I have 5 o'clock.
We are. I gave her a bunch of it. Some of the guys.
What time is it?
You wanna wait a little bit and see?
It's 5 o'clock. Did Christina, did she not gonna come to this meeting? I think she mentioned, right? I think I told you. Christina me amigo, Alba. I think she mentioned that she wasn't gonna be here. She was gonna be in San Antonio back in. So that one really would be, Stevie Paz, Commissioner Paz.
Yes, Steve.
But yeah, I think we can go ahead and get started. It's already 5 o'clock. It's not like we're gonna be, I don't think this is gonna take long.
I just wanted to confirm that the applicant or owner didn't have to be a part of the work session today. Any?
Doesn't have to be part of the work session, but you,
Be nice.
since you're here,
I was gonna say, I couldn't remember. I was like, should we be here or not here? So we're here.
It's helpful.
The owner's here as well, if you want.
Oh, yeah,
to
they-
come sit in.
definitely if he's here.
Yeah, we can kind of,
Just in case there's a question.
that's what I'm hearing. Okay, let me grab him real quick.
Just in case Stevie. Put a chair, yeah. There you go.
Sure they're part of it.
We can be friendly. We can be friendly.
Scoot over one, so they can sit together here.
Should I go to this? Oh, you want to put one more seat in there? Or you?
No, just move them over. Let's see here.
Yes.
Oh, of course, yes, I'm hoping.
Really,
Just gonna put it in there.
I went to the library.
There's one more member of the public here.
Okay.
So if you need us to just sit out.
So that whichever she can join or.
Oh,
What's that?
good, yeah.
Animal, but. And so, we were discussing that. He says, well, that's improved. Change that.
Because it says it's best to look at elevation.
Yeah, that's the big.
Yeah, and also the coping.
Building, because they wanted to keep those families. Which,
Too much.
It's a Jamie.
yeah.
Yeah, that's-
And all that stuff.
I got some ideas.
This big old thing.
Well, that's why I always ask my mom, like, before I leave it.
Oh, tell us more.
TMI, it's a conversation.
Yeah, we're cool.
Hello.
Good afternoon, how you doing?
Yeah, good to see you.
Good to see you too.
All right, we'll go ahead and get started. It's 5:03. Today is March 17th, 2025. Pzhac, Planning and Zoning Historic Appropriateness Commission. And we are here to discuss under a work session, a case that is in our regular meeting agenda, which is shortly after this work session. Case number 061956. The address is 2750 Old Farm Road. It was submitted by applicant Melanie Vigil They are requesting approval to subdivide the recently rezoned property from 3 acres to 3 individual 1-acre parcels. Again, this was recently rezoned from R8 to R1. And right now, we did talk about the subdivision during that time about the applicant, Mr. Vihid, coming in and submitting a subdivision request that would meet our code for the R1 residential one, which requires a 1 acre per parcel. We do have the application, the request for an alternate subdivision procedure, and the actual replat, proposed replat, I guess I should say, which was done by Moy Surveying. It's just in front of one of the things I would like to point out, will probably be in question right away, was there is a house on one of the parcels, which is on the north side, the northernmost, one on the front. And then we have two empty parcels beneath that. There is an easement that was implemented and placed by the applicant and the surveyor to be able to meet the 1 acre
For that.
requirement, correct. There also another question was there are some solar panels on the center parcel that also was in question once they was subdivided if it met the setbacks. The setbacks for the setbacks for a R1 parcel is 7 feet on each side all the way around. Okay.
Side set.
Correct, and those solar panels, minimum, I did the aerial with the Doñana County, minimum was between 11 and 14 feet, so they're way within the setback, so that's not a concern. I believe what Mr. Vihid mentioned about the solar panels being on the other parcel was once a house is constructed, those solar panels will be used for that middle,
Yes.
right?
Just
Some-
that one?
Yes.
Okay, it wouldn't go up to your.
No.
Okay, that's good.
Another thing also is this Old Farm Road is a private road. Okay, the closest Mesilla, town of Mesilla water utility is on the university side. Is there? Mr. Vihid is aware that the utilities would be required for him to run them to his property. There is some question about that Old Farm Road, about it being private and so on and so on. But as of now, as the proposed subdivision, he is aware that it's something that he would probably needs to get done. You do have a septic
Yes.
on this property and also a domestic well,
Yes.
right? And these two, obviously, there's no utilities to them.
No, there's, the only utilities, there is a utilities easement along the
Easement.
side of the road. It's a 70-foot wide road. The road itself, there's actually 20 feet of easement on each side of
On
Old
each
Farm Road. Yes, on the east side and also on the
30
west.
foot road.
And those are the easement, the utilities easement.
Oh,
The only thing that's there is, you got Zia Natural Gas, and you also have Comcast, and you have also, well, electricity is there.
yeah.
So one of the things we're trying to find out, what I'm trying to find out is, as the previous case that came along about is whenever these subdivisions get done and they install these private roads and they have these easements on there has to be some kind of record. What was those easements for and those roads? So, if those records do show up, I am again, I hate assuming, but based on the information small information that I have, that road was approved with similar to another road to provide access to many other properties, because that used to be a huge parcel, and now you have a lot more smaller 1 acre parcel. So I'm trying to find information that road indeed was approved with that subdivision in the past, and if so, it could be a possibility that road again could be subject to some changes, either public road become a public road or some different.
The town of Mesilla would take that on.
It's a possibility,
Yeah, possible.
or if it's a subdivision, do we call them CCRs? I myself have both of them.
Mhm.
That is a private contract between the subdivision and the homeowners. That is not necessarily involves the town.
Oh, okay.
So the town does not enforce those or
That's another
acknowledge
option.
those something. But again, there's many possibilities. But for now, worst case scenario, Mr. Vihida is aware that he would need to provide utilities to those
Right.
parcels. Again, if there is some information that or records in the future, then it could be possible that that might be something that we could be bringing up for consideration to the commission and the board of trustees.
If I can make a comment, right across the lateral, right behind my home on the north side, these two small parcels here on the other side of the lateral, those two parcels are in the town of Mesilla. And right there at the corner, there is a water hydrant that's already in the town of Mesilla in the jurisdiction
Fire
that the city of Las Cruces installed. I checked with the engineers, the engineer department at the utilities, Las Cruces. That hydrant is in Mesilla. It's in Mesilla.
Interesting.
It's functioning.
And it's functioning. And what they did is they put a water line about a couple of years, and they ran the water line along the side of the lateral all the way to Stanford Drive.
Oh, right, to the
Yes,
east.
to the east. But that partial part of the water line and also the water hydrant is in the sea.
So to kind of follow up on that question, depending on the location, the distance, there's a certain distance you have to have for the fire hydrants so I would wonder if maybe, well, the fire department can talk about that, but maybe you have to put another hydrant in down.
Possible.
Yeah.
Yes.
That could be possible.
I think they're typically designed at like 450 feet, if
Okay.
I'm not mistaken,
Yeah.
from hydrant to hydrant. Yeah. So just,
So we would be.
yeah, I mean, it depends. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
where
if this
that
one's
one-
sitting here, 450 might
Depends on
be
one-
here.
one down
So we
there.
might be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just depends. And then I don't believe, is this person tapped into water? Are they on a well as well?
On the corner there?
They're also Mr. Brad Foreman. He's on a well also.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
but the one that's below your south of your property.
Oh, she's also
She's
on
on
a
a
well.
well,
and
which
also
is hers is
septic
an
tank.
interesting one because
She's in a well and a septic tank.
Well,
in
septic-
Latoya's.
So maybe there would be, well, maybe that's off topic, but perhaps there could be an opportunity to get her on once you bring up the line.
Yes.
Well, she has an opportunity now because there is water all the way up to her frontage, up to the
Yeah.
university side.
She's on.
Because she's on that corner.
Okay, I understand that, but I thought the water comes on University just up to where the lodge is.
No.
That's what I heard before.
And there's one more lot below this one.
but does the line extend further east to her?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
What are woods over
Down, there's a lodge down here on the main
It
road.
may stop you.
And I understood from the department is that's as far as the water line, the sewer line goes.
So in other words, it stops
Yeah,
here.
Yeah.
But if it needs to go furthermore, then the town of Mesilla would move it, extend it all the way up to Old Farm Road. Because it has to, because that is a public, it has to reach it to the closest part of
Oh, okay.
it has to move it down to that spot. And then from there, obviously it can't go into private property. So yeah, it will
Yeah.
move it all the way up to Old Farm Road and then from there.
Okay.
A year ago, when they were doing all the construction on University Road and putting new water lines,
Right.
I spoke to the engineer that was doing it. Right at the corner of Old Farm Road and University, right at the corner on the east side of
East
Old
side.
Farm Road.
Oh, okay.
They did put a stub out, one of those, what they call
Oh,
stub out.
yeah, for
And they put a water hydrant.
extension.
And that water hydrant has water because I've seen tankers,
Tap
trucks,
into it.
yeah,
Hook up to it.
water,
Oh,
and there's
okay.
water,
So there is
Okay,
water
good.
up to
there's
there.
water.
So there's water up to the intersection of Old Farm and University?
Yes.
Yeah, good.
Yes.
That's already done.
Yeah.
Mr. Salazar, you were saying Old Farm Road is a private road?
Mhm.
Mr. Higgin, if I can ask, who owns the adjacent property on this side? Just the lodge?
No, the lodge is
Back behind.
Oh, yes, right behind the wall. Yes, it's a Masonic Lodge.
So the Masonic Lodge, they own that whole strip all the way to the front of your property?
Yes, yes. I'm one of the members and they do, well, we do have that property. We do, yes,
Just was curious.
yes.
I had another question. You were talking about easements. And I understand, kind of answers my question about the solar panels, whether they're feeding both ways. And if it's on this property, then it's not an easement issue, in my mind. But what I think is an easement issue is, I mean, they call it out on the plat, is this little section to gain more property so they can make this a 1 acre and reduce yours to 1 acre is, they call it a driveway easement. at least on here. It would seem like, depends how well you get together with, or get along with your family. But it seems like we need a legal document for an easement, because who knows what happens in the future.
Well, that's what's gonna
Sell
happen.
these properties and
Yeah, you're
it
right.
should go with the property.
Even family members.
Yeah, I'm telling you,
That's
It may be the hardest one.
Not to say that, that's the relation he has with his system, but I mean, yeah, it definitely, when this replat gets approved, that is gonna be part, it should be included in the
Right.
deed
Okay, good.
whenever it gets to the title company and whenever it gets written up.
And keep in mind that, when we create an easement in like the survey world, we can create an easement by placing it on a subdivision plat when we do that. So like as it stands, it would be fine as it is with actually out an easement agreement. It would just be the responsibility of the buyer to know that it's there when they're
I see
closing.
what you're saying.
However, there isn't anything that prohibits us, especially with an approval with conditions, to say we want to make sure that there's an easement agreement in place
It goes
between
for
the
the
two
land.
lots and their successors or assigns.
I mean, it's.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, we had a meeting with some attorneys today about needing to create easements because of reasons like that. So,
Yeah, you never know.
and the other thing I'd also add about the solar panels is that El Paso Electric. So this process, and you all may know this, but if it were to reach approval, we then have to route it to all the utilities that service this property. And so El Paso Electric
Get it in the
get
network.
it, Lumen, yeah, they're all gonna see it and say we need easements, we don't easements. El
Okay.
Paso Electric does not want solar panel lines crossing over utility lines crossing over property lines at all. So like we would have to address that there's a temporary easement here only to allow this for this time, because El Paso Electric, I mean, I've had other projects where they say, somebody had really small individual lots and they owned all of them, but they had to replat and remove all of them just to run power from their solar power or, from their solar panels to their home.
Now, along the side of the two properties, my understanding, I have two light posts. I have one there at the corner of the Old Farm Road and my lot. They come on night. And then the other one is right by the gate to the wrought iron gate to the backyard. Those turn on at night. Now, my understanding that there is an easement, El Paso Electric Company along that side.
Oh.
And there's also an easement along the ditch bank over here too.
So that could
El
be
Paso
included.
Electric, yes. And it's underground.
Good.
When we do our research, we'll gather them if we find them, but some of those older ones are not very well categorized. So El Paso Electric will say, hey, we actually need an easement or have an easement from here to here.
Okay.
And so through that review process, we'll
You'll show
capture
that.
those as well if we need to, yeah. So the way we get the blessing from the municipality and then go try and reach the blessing from utility to place easements if we need to. And then once everyone said yes, then we can proceed to sign physically.
Oh, good.
And as Mr. Villa just mentioned, I mean, it should be obvious, but the utility lines and all that will be underground, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And again, we can definitely, I think that there's normal language here that the utility companies just have us do. And I think it says for overhead or underground. In this case, it does say serviced by underground to the subdivision.
Okay. For a sign off.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Any other questions? No? All right. So you all have any questions? Anything, comments?
No,
Right.
I think the only notes that we had put is that we're proposing individual water well and septic tank. So typically what we see is that, I mean, in typical development, if we're within 300 feet of a utility, we try to tie it if we can, right? If it makes sense, I guess economically, not even economically, because it's not a hardship issue, but like one challenge that isn't really feasible is sewer, because these lots are graded so much lower than just the road that gravity, it's a sewer system, and so it doesn't work, right? And then depending on how low this line is, we have to be high enough so that we have a 4% grade from the top up here all the way down.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. 4% grade for good drainage in the sewer line. And so this line sometimes has to be really deep if this distance gets too far. So environmentally, it just doesn't work. Now, luckily, NMED gets involved in this because when he goes to pull a building permit, they're going to say, you have to get septic tanks, but for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath property, you need at least 0.88 acres. And so we satisfy that requirement. 3/4 is if we really wanted 2-bed, 1-bath, or 3-bed, 2-bath, but everybody calls them flex rooms and throws a 4-bed on there.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So that's what maybe the thought is about right now is not running utilities or a possibility of not running utilities and going to septic.
Well, as we just had discussed it, and I'll let you chime in too. I know that sewer individually septic tanks seems to be a lot more feasible because I don't think that we're actually going to have the grade unless we position these houses. That much
which
higher to then grade to the road to then drain down.
This
to
was
the
the old
sewer.
riverbed, was it not?
Yes.
That's
I was
right,
gonna
so,
say, when
so-
it moved.
Does a lift station come in mind?
Individual ones probably wouldn't work because I mean, like normally, city utility probably wouldn't want the 3 lines connected to. I say a city utility, whoever pays, whoever's utility line it is, wouldn't want like a main sewer line coming within the property. They want to have a main sewer line outside the property and stubbing out. And so each individual lot, you know what I mean? Like rather than having these 3 and then pump up
You're right.
here and then back down.
Right.
And it's all just because of access. If something happens to the line right here, or utility companies have to go onto people's property, and they're trying to minimize that as much as possible.
Exactly. Liability one.
Yeah.
Now, Miss Montoya, that's on the corner of Old Farm Road and University, that first home. She is on a well also, and she's also on a septic tank. Yes.
Yeah, generally the code does allow for you to have wells and septics, providing that there is no sewer or water available to you to the property. And in this case, there is no water or well suitable to the property, but he does have that option to be able to run water from that access point that they left them, or he can put a septic or a well, dig a well.
Now, when you say septic, does that mean just self-contained, or does that have leach field? Leach field's allowed?
Self-contained and leach field.
It could be leach field too, or self-contained and they have to pump it out.
Correct. It's the same thing.
Yeah,
They have a septic, and then the leach field actually only drains out all the fluids,
Right.
and the septic itself contains all the solids, and they have that pumped out.
Yeah.
And when it's lower than, I was told 3/4, but 0.88 is pretty close
It is
to it.
3/4 minimum,
Yeah.
but they limit your house size at 3/4.
Yeah.
At 1 acre, you can kind of build as much as you want.
And just to kind of for educational purposes, the reason why they do that is because if it's less than 3 acres, and say for instance there's a subdivision, the developer wants to propose 40 houses, and each house property is half an acre, so that's below that threshold. Then what happens if you allow them to do that? There will be too much septics and leach fields going into the
Groundwater.
exactly.
Yeah, the
So
level of
some of that
nitrogen
drinking
shoots
water
out.
underneath would pollute it, so that's why they don't allow them to do that. You can do that when it's less than 3 acres, but you need to go to what we call a modified septic, which gets very, very expensive, and they gotta have a contract with the state, and they gotta get, it just,
Sometimes it's a
again,
mound,
for the
it's
purpose of
evaporation
polluting the
versus-
groundwater, exactly. So,
Pumping monthly.
yeah, I say that because I didn't know that when I brought it.
oh,
But anyway, I had to go there and push the button.
And then
I guess the good news is from the standpoint of the groundwater is so low here, you got a lot of areas. for
By the time to
filtration.
filter,
I
by the time
know.
it
Yeah,
gets there.
exactly.
Well, and it's always a double-edged sword because as we
Yeah.
talked about the opportunity for water, you say, well, there is an expense to, of course, run that.
Yeah.
Compared to individual wells, and people automatically think, oh, an individual well is so much easier. I don't have to run a water line. However, like I bought my house in that first summer, my Salopec and Stallman Farm friends just pull the water so low that I'm like, cool, there goes my grass, you
Yeah.
know. And so,
Yeah.
and no offense, I understand their operation they're in. You know what I mean? Like I get it. It's our area, you know. It's-
Mr. Salazar, so it's not that he doesn't have access to water, so he could go either way, or if he has access, he should actually do the access from the university.
To answer that question is because the access of the city water not up to adjacent to the property line of his property,
Uh-huh.
that is not considered access to city water or sewer. So that way he does have that option to either run the utilities up to have access to, or he can do a septic well on his property.
No, when I first had this house built, I had my well over 300 feet deep. And the reason is because I foresaw that of all the pumping, all the trees here,
Trees, yeah.
that the
Yeah.
water table did drop
Sure.
big time because my neighbor Jerry Bustos, that lives where about the 3 acres, she's had to get Viviana Herrera go deeper because it's dropped the water. Brad Foreman, he's getting to a point where he might have to drill deeper there too.
What
because
is the standard depth? now that-
you can go deep as
It varies
Is there a
too. The state engineer will.
Aquifer.
Yeah, how deep your water is.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, they'll look at the area and the surrounding wells and then just kind of
Yeah.
assume that the average depth is probably around there. But certain parts of our county are so much deeper than others, and then the quality of the water too.
And when you want to drill a well, don't they have to do testing at different wells
Oh, yeah.
around the locations
It's-
to
I
see
mean-
what the drawdown?
Yeah, I think the state engineer, of course, will be
Yeah.
like, oh, domestic well, no problem. You know what I mean? But they have requirements for what a domestic well can produce. It can't like farm, it can flood 10
Support a
acres.
farm.
Yeah, exactly. And so there's limitations with that, and they're metered, of course, and so forth.
and I don't know if you noticed, but when you go through there, and even over here for the Italian, what is it? The Italian restaurant right here. What is it?
Pistachios.
No,
Oh, Luna.
the other one, the fancy one.
Les Cones.
Los Cones.
You
Los
keep
Cones.
going. I got them all. I'm like, they're all on my speed dial.
If you notice, the ground drops down quite a bit.
Yeah.
And talking to years ago to the older Rayleighs, she said that her mom and her grandma used to talk about how the river used to run through there, and it was
Wow.
always shipped.
Yeah.
And during that time when university was there, the river was running through there. I mean,
That's so
and there's a lot of
interesting.
there's a lot of sand, and
Oh, yeah.
old cars would get stuck and everything. And then they would have to use their mules that they'd have because they had a dairy there. They had a dairy there,
Oh, yeah.
and they'd go out and pull up the cars, the old cars out of the sand.
Mr. People, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So when you're looking at cost effectiveness, do you know which is better for you to tap in all the way up on university and bring the water down that way you know that you'll always have water? Or is it gonna be?
Eventually, I'm going to have to do that
Okay,
because talking to other folks, not just here but in the valley,
right.
it's costly to go deeper to get the water. So now you're more dependent on community water for that reason.
And I know, the only reason I said it was because I have property in Portales, which they're like zero water now. And it was gonna cost me about $45,000 to run from the highway down to my dad's property. And I'm like,
What distance is that?
Huh?
What would you estimate that distance was?
less than a mile,
Oh,
yeah.
still.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
it's
way, though.
very
Yeah,
expensive.
it's way, oh, yeah.
It's very
Yeah,
expensive. But then I was actually having to go through like how many properties to get, because my dad was like
Oh,
at the
right.
end of
down the
something
road,
like
way down.
Yeah, yeah.
And then back.
And I do foresee that. I do hope to be hooked up to community water eventually.
Okay,
Yes.
so is that something you would consider in your upcoming proposal, or is that something you're gonna leave to each individual land purchaser?
I think as I've spoken to Brad Foreman, that's up at the end, and he said if need so, we all pitch in and
Okay. Japan.
Yeah. because he's going to have to go deeper.
Yeah, because, we're not guaranteed the well water for sure with all the
I know,
palm trees,
it's tough.
so.
It's a tough battle.
Pretty salty.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions? No? All right, we'll take a 5-minute break. Sounds good to you? Or 5-minute break? Then we'll go ahead and start. Give me a chance to put this away and then we'll.
And isn't the ultimate beginning a package?
Yeah. You just didn't pick it up.
It's in the mailbox. You have one in the mailbox.
Yeah. Don't get it. Like,
I would like to email them to you.
This time.
I didn't get one this time.
Mine.
That's-
Yours was all
that's
paper
like
clips,
10%
right?
off, I did
See,
not.
this is my.
No, the one that you just gave me, you said I have an extra?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, now there you go.
Yeah, you definitely
I mean,
should
that's
copy it.
Oh, no.
That's
How are you?
The agenda.
bad.
I'm good, thanks.
She just, I'm get it from. It's right here. It's right here. She didn't look at it.
Yes, but I have doubles here. This was. This is for you. I already gave you this one, right?
No.
It's up there.
Oh, it's not.
Yeah. But yes, the answer is yes. They're supposed to give it, and I apologize. I thought she did already.
Get over here for a minute.
Yeah, that was a good question you asked about whether sounds like
Well, there's a problem where
later. Yeah, I know.
It's a hard, I mean, look how road it is. Here in the river, my grandfather was deputy marshal for the town of Seattle. You get the drunkards, you know, from the bar here.
Oh, my.
I'm gonna move these.
There was a ferry. Yeah,
Oh, the ferry.
there was a ferry right
There
there.
is a ferry.
And they would ship them across the other side of the
Right. Yes, ma'am.
I'm like, oh,
Right.
yeah.
Why am I going backwards?
That's fine.
I know, I just work.
That's my excuse.
I want to.
Yeah. Still be there.
Who's it? He's not good. Oh, she's
And he was, and he was supposed to get involved. And he was like, I mean,
We didn't need this spaghetti.
they were in a hospital. They were in a hospital. They were in an occupational store. And they, beat him up. He was going to pass. He was very
Man. It's a lot of habits.
Yeah.
I've been having these in my office for so long.
Oh, muchísimas gracias.
Hanging on your office wall.
I'm official for a little while longer.
Suitable for her. That's right. All right. We won't pinch it.
Well, now he goes, I got a couple extra.
There you go.
If you want.
Okay.
Do you guys have the same? You have one? Or are you just waiting for Tom?
I we also have another one in the file too from the last project. This
Oh, you already have one?
from the last
Yeah.
regular we did.
It's on the same.
It's on the same one that you need.
How are you? How are you?
It's the same
Good,
one.
how are you?
We do downstairs and we file for it.
Yeah.
Very
Very
good.
good.
We don't have a project.
Yeah, the list is in file, man. supposed to be there indefinite.
Just take it at a time.
I refuse to listen.
The only thing I was mentioning to Yana is because you guys are proposing to be so close to that wall. It has to be. Four by fours?
We were just showing how the gutter was.
But I mean,
How come the last time we were able to do
but now you guys are doing the whole freaking thing, man, with wood.
Well, I've been walking my neighbor's dog.
I think it's actually because there was already a porch there before, no?
Listen to me.
There was something there.
I was just curious.
There was something that I was able to come up with. Yeah, because now it's on.
Yeah, and actually.
I'd be a little bit more sensitive.
That's why I just want to make dog. It's a shock for me because I like.
Yeah, no, it's, we're not doing CJ.
And I thought it'd be there. It would be-
That was a fast building, but.
I mean, we're all gone. Doesn't have as many.
But the coverage is the
Every dog in town.
I didn't bring my phone.
Yeah.
The view is awesome.
Oh, I know. He's gonna do that. Oh, 7, right before our regular meeting.
It's Mother's Day.
When you are.
Oh, yeah, we're gonna start early. Yeah. All right, we're ready for our meeting today with the P and Z, Planning and Zoning and Historical Appropriateness Commission. And it's 5:38 or something like that. We're starting a little early today. And it's Monday, March 17th at 5:38. So first order of business is to get up and pledge allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Mr. Salazar, if you would do a roll call for determination of quorum.
Yes, Commissioner Gallegos,
Present.
Commissioner Miller,
Present.
Mr. Chair Walkinshaw,
Present.
Madam Chair, Vice Chair Alba, and Commissioner Mulvihill, Commissioner Rosemary,
Present.
and Commissioner Paz. Mr. Chair, you do have quorum, 4 out of 5.
Okay, thank you.
Mike?
Yeah.
You do have a seat open, Mr. Chair, for to have 5 commissioners on the bench.
Okay.
If, in order for Commissioner Rosemary to be part of the voting
To be invited.
tonight, she needs to be
Okay.
invited.
Yeah, I'd like to invite you to join us up here if you wish.
And that would make it 5 out of 5.
So all being voting members
Correct.
at this point. Yeah. Thank you. Now it's time to, if there's any changes, we need to have a motion and second for any changes or approval of the agenda.
I have none.
Yes, ma'am.
I just like clarification on, PZ 061956. It hasn't, we haven't established R1 on that property yet. It's not, it's still supposed to be RM now.
Okay, I think, Mr. Chair, if I may, we will discuss whenever the consent, the regular changes to approval to the agenda is to approve the order or any omission of any cases on the agenda itself. The cases individually will be discussed at the time they're scheduled.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Good question. Do I have a motion? In a second. Okay. All right, moved by Commissioner Miller and seconded by Commissioner Mulvihill. Thank you. Always have to designate. Yeah, it's going to take a while. Thank you for that. It's time for public input on the projects that are on the agenda.
Any discussion on this motion
Oh, okay.
on the agenda to approve the agenda? Like to take a vote, Mr. Chair?
Okay, yeah, thank
What I would do now is, if you said if I have any comments. or
No, right now,
We're
we're
just approving
going,
the-
we have to approve the consent agenda.
Okay,
Mhm.
thank you.
Okay, so we do have a first by Commissioner Miller, second by Commissioner Mulvihill. If there's no further discussion, I'm going to go with the vote with Commissioner Gallegos,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller, Mr. Chair Walkinshaw,
Yes.
Commissioner Rose, what is your last name? Rose? Aguilar? Alviar, I apologize. Commissioner Alviar and Commissioner Mulvihill. Mr. Chair, motion passes.
Very good, thank you. Now it's time for public input on the projects that are on the action and consideration.
Yes, just to be clear, again, the public input is for any comments that the public might have to bring up to the commission that regarding anything on the agenda that we have for tonight.
It's time for public input.
Yes, ma'am.
It's Susan Kruger speaking, and I would like to talk to you just briefly about the fact that this request to subdivide a recently rezoned property from RA to R1, this has been going on since October of 2001. This is a repeated request, and I think that in order to understand what happened and what is happening now, that I would ask you to take some time to look at the history of the rezone request for this property, because it's not the first time, and I'm not sure that all of you have that history, or even if you have it, that you understand what went on. So that's my request to you, is to take some time and figure out what's going on here, because I don't believe that staff even has perhaps the necessary background to follow this along. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? All right, I think we're ready to go on to approving the consent agenda. And there's only one item on here. It's for the March 3rd, 2025 P&Z regular meeting minutes, which you have in your packet. I need a motion, Barbara. Yeah, I need a motion for that in a second.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? No? Okay, go with the vote.
Well, I did have one discussion. I think I sent that to you. You've updated
Correct.
the final.
Yeah,
document.
if you see the final draft
Yeah,
there.
yeah. So we're okay there.
And all that was is one of the votes. I did document it correctly. It just at the bottom instead of saying 3-2, it said it was 5-0.
5-0, yeah.
Yeah,
Pretty
it's an
much.
oversight on my
Pretty
part.
much.
Okay, we'll go ahead and take the vote for the approving of the consent agenda. Commissioner Gallegos,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller, Mr. Chair Walkinshaw,
Yes.
Commissioner Alviar,
Yes.
and Commissioner Mulvihill. Mr. Chair, motion passes.
Very good, thank you. Now we're going on to the action and consideration. First one is PNC case 061956, and it's at 2750 Old Farm Road, submitted by Enrique and Melanie Viejo. And it's for approval for subdivision. I think it's the subdivision is a alternate
Procedure
summary.
subdivision, correct.
Okay. It's for a 3-acre parcel into 3 1-acre parcels, single family residence, R1.
All right, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, this is what we just recently reviewed during our work session before the meeting. This is at 2750 Old Farm Road, was submitted by Enrique and Melanie Vigil. They are requesting approval to subdivide their recently approved or rezoned parcel from 3 acres to 3 1-acre parcels. My apologies. The zone is single family residential R1. Mr. and Mrs. Vigil are requesting an alternate summary subdivision. The access road to the property is a private road. Requiring infrastructure on the private road is not a requirement set by the town of Mesilla. This property was recently rezoned from residential agricultural, which is RA, to single family residential R1. Upon approval of the rezone, it was understood by the commission and subdivision request should be the next step after rezoning. Upon review of the replat, all 3 parcels meet Mesilla Town Code 18.03.050, sections A and B, development standards for R1 zoning. Minimum requirements of 1 acre and also the width of 1 foot and depth and 200 feet requirement. A driveway easement is being proposed on one of the properties as shown as on replat. The center 1-acre parcel has existing solar panels approximately 11 feet from property line. Mesilla Town Code 1830.050 section C2 requires a 7-foot setback. The parcels in question right now was rezoned and was approved on October 28, 2024. The alternate subdivision should be considered due to the private road access. Commission to request a public hearing only if there is a specific concern, but not necessary. According to Mesilla Town Code 17.35.010 section E. A subdivision application was submitted along with the replat. And I stand by for any questions. I would need a motion first.
Yeah, motion for comments.
Second.
It was a tie.
I think it was Commissioner Mulvihill.
So who was the second?
There it
Okay.
goes.
So first motion by Commissioner Miller, second.
Right.
Second one by, okay.
So any discussion? Yes, please. Thank you. Thank you.
So this says that on here that it was already subdivided, already, it's already
Rezoned.
a 1 acre, that was already approved?
No.
No.
What,
The
Why
rezone.
are we calling it an R1 when it's RA?
correct.
Why, then I'm here, why are we calling it an R1?
Because it is R1. It's R1 3-acre parcel. Because it's, the rezone was already approved from go to RA to R1. So that is what is an RA, that is why it's an R1 parcel. But it's R1 parcel, correct? But it's a 3-acre parcel. So now they're going from R1 3-acre parcel to a 3 1-acre parcel. That is correct.
Clarify. Is, do you have any information for us on issues that were brought up to the commission in 2000?
No, we do not. I do think that all those questions or concerns at the time for the rezone were addressed at that time when it was approved. Right now, the application before you is for a subdivision request, not for a rezone request. That's already been, again, approved in October. gone through the commission and the board of trustees. Right now, we are in front of us considering the subdivision of a recently rezoned parcel.
So the reason is that why it's being an alternate summary?
The reason why it's an alter summary is because there is a private road accessing these parcels. You know, we can't have infrastructure on a private road because it doesn't belong to us.
And so, one last question, Mr. Salazar, who's giving permission to the other, 2 acres for access off the private road? Where do they get that permission?
Well, because that road has been there established for quite some time now. That's why I kind of mentioned, I feel like this road has been part of the subdivision approval at one point, but because that road, not only that, but also because that road has been in existence to and allowed access to all these properties, especially as go through, there is a state statute that does consider that road to be a community road, even though it's private, because the amount of time is being given access to all those properties adjacent to it around the area.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Chair.
Sure.
Mr. Salazar, so my question is on that easement. Do we know that we have, if there, it sounds like there's enough room, but do we know for sure that there's enough room for the utilities to be installed in that, on that easement?
As the
Yeah.
applicant mentioned, there's a 70-foot easement, I believe.
Uh-huh.
You're talking about the middle parcel and the second
Yeah, I'm
vacant
just
ones?
wondering about access to utilities and resources, whether that's going to be enough room on that easement for those utilities.
Yeah, well, that easement that is showing on the plat, it's called a driveway easement. That's only to access the property. It's not considered a utility easement. It's a driveway which is access to the property through via that driveway.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
You're talking about utilities,
Yeah.
not the driveway.
Right, utility.
Yeah, utility easement goes all along the old full farm road.
Yeah, on either side of the road.
Correct.
Yeah,
On
20
either
foot
side
on
of the
either
road.
side. It was 20 feet on either side.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know the exact, but yeah, there's adequate enough.
But I believe the proposal might be that Mr. Enriquez wants to access the secondary easement, not the old farm road, but the secondary easement that's on the private property, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And we do know that the easement has enough room. If you have vehicles coming in and out of that road, then there's going to be enough room for utilities, right?
Yeah, the utility is going to be underground, right?
Ground.
Yeah, and the private road for access to that property, either would be, it's already pretty much already established because that third parcel, that northern parcel already has a driveway in there and everything.
Right.
The purpose for that easement really is to give that middle parcel enough square footage to meet the standard of 1 acre.
1 acre.
For 1 acre.
Right.
Right.
So even if they don't use it as an entry some such in legal property laws,
Right.
there is that easement that make that parcel a 1 acre parcel.
And we do know that water and sewer are not going to be a part of that installation along
Correct.
that easement. Okay.
Right.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, if no other comments, let's go ahead and have the vote.
I'd like to.
Oh, okay.
Make a motion.
Sure.
I have a 3-part condition.
Okay.
Is that where we're at right now? We're
I
just voting to,
there was a motion to approve, and if we want to change the motion to approve or motion to amend the original, then you can do that now.
okay, well, I'd like to make a motion to amend it with conditions.
Okay, there's got to be a second for that in order to be able to be discussed.
Any second? Doesn't sound like it.
There wasn't a second, so it dies. So back to the original motion, right?
Right.
Is to approve.
Yes.
Any other further discussion? I'll take the vote. All right, this is to approve case number 061956. Commissioner Gallegos,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Chair Walkinshaw,
Yes.
Commissioner Alviar, and Commissioner Mulvihill.
No.
Mr. Chair, motion passes 4-1.
Okay, thank you. Now we're going on to B. It's P&Z case 061965, which is a 2410 Calle de San Ambino, submitted by Tom Hutchinson. And it's requesting approval to construct an entry/exit sites between La Posta and the La Posta parking area, in addition to installing a new addition onto the historic structure. And it's zoned commercial, historic commercial. So I have a motion to discuss.
Second.
Okay, so we got a first motion by Commissioner Miller and second motion by Commissioner Gallegos.
Correct.
This is again case number 061965, 2410 Calle de San Albino, was submitted by Tom Hutchison, requested approval to construct entry-exit sites between La Posta and La Posta parking lot, zone historical commercial. Background and analysis: Mr. Hutchison is looking to improve La Posta parking lots with an entry patio and crosswalk corner to the overflow La Posta parking lot. That doesn't, I kind of don't know. Improvements consist of replacing small parking lot on La Posta property to a more welcoming patio where customers can enter, exit, a restaurant, have somewhere to socialize. Currently, the patio is not being proposed for outdoor dining. The remote parking for La Posta is the northeast corner of the intersection of Calle de Parian and Calle de San Albino. Currently, there is a crosswalk from La Posta corner to the remote parking lot. Mr. Hutchinson is looking to also construct structures in each corner for the purpose of visual appeal and also for the public to have seating and waiting area. Lastly, Mr. Hutchinson is requesting approval also to include in these plans for an addition to his restaurant. The addition will be located on the east side of the building where the current parking lot is located. According to the plan submitted, the additions will approximately be 24 by 27 feet. Occupy the corner area of the parking lot. Also will be decorated exteriorly with the type of found pergola. La Posta is registered as in our Mesilla historic registry, according to the registry in La Mesilla Historic multiple resource area nominations, and also in La Mesilla Historic District nomination. That is there in front of you. For the sake of time, I'm not going to read all.
Thank you.
For any rehabilitation in historic structures, this code refers to the structure, the Secretary of Interior Standards for Rehabilitation, Mesilla Town Code 18.33.180, Section B. It reads, the historic character of a property will be retained and preserved. The removal of the distinctive material or alterations of features, spaces, and spatial relationships that characterize a property will be avoided. Section D, changes to a property that have acquired historic significance in their own right will be retained and preserved. Section I, new addition, exterior alterations, or related new construction will not destroy historic materials, features, and spatial relationship that characterize the property. The new work shall be differentiated from the old and will be compatible with the historic material, feature, size, scale, and proportion and massing to protect the integrity of the property and its environment. Section J, new additions and adjacent or related new construction will be undertaken in such a manner that, if removed in the future, the essential form and integrity of the historic property and its environment will be unimpaired. Departmental comments: Mr. Hutchison's request was reviewed by the Pzhac for a historic appropriateness permit during the work session on January 21st. Mr. Hutchison currently does not have a contractor or a full set of plans, building plans. In case there are some changes or last-minute changes, he is requesting approval before investing in plans. If approved, building plans will be submitted to staff for review and forwarded to New Mexico CID. There is an application, approval of ownership, guidelines for rehabilitation, historic buildings, new additions, identification, site plans, and pictures in your packet. And I stand by for any questions. Or I would like to invite Mr. Hutchinson
Yeah.
to answer any questions that the commission might have. I think that would be better. Mr. Hutchinson?
Good evening. Hi. Questions?
I have a question. I think in the planning session, you didn't have a clear idea of what you were using your addition for. Have you
No.
narrowed that down or figured?
No, I wish I did. There's still a lot of good thoughts on what we could use that space for, from kitchen expansion to a retail spot to some type of bakery. But no, we haven't resolved that. I think we're leaning more towards a kitchen expansion, which we desperately need some sports space. But I'm sorry I don't have, yeah.
Any other? I do have several comments.
Okay.
So, I appreciated getting the mock-up for what the building, I'm talking about the addition,
Yes.
what it looks like. And that's a good thing, but it's a bad thing from the standpoint of it doesn't meet the Secretary of Interior standards for, it's supposed to be quite different, or different to the point where you can tell the new structure versus the old.
Yeah, I mean, the pictures really don't depict that very well, and it's hard to find that sweet spot.
Yeah, it is.
We get in trouble when we change it too much, and we get in trouble if we're too close. So we're trying to find a spot that makes the most sense, and I'll bring in more detail when we get to the building of the building.
So I don't know when the best time is to do condition, but I would like to make sure that we're not approving what's shown on the mock-up. I'd be a little concerned about that.
Conceptually. Yeah, I think we're all conceptually approving it, but if you give me a little bit of direction on what you think is different, what needs to be perceived as different. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a couple things. One thing is it shows the brick coping
Parapet.
all around the building, and it's the same height.
Yes.
And so one recommendation, I think what would be better for me to kind of describe what I think would be good is, I think that your architect ought to make sure he understands the direction from the Secretary of Interior.
Right.
Structure site. So I'd like to make a condition. I don't know if this is the right time to do that, but I'd like to get that handled now, and then we can talk about the other site work.
Okay, but give me some direction on what that might need to be.
I would like to see the elevation not the same.
Not the same? Would that qualify, you think? Okay.
Yeah, I think it could be a little bit lower. So
A little bit lower, a little bit higher? Okay.
Well, not high.
Not higher.
No, then
Because
you
you could be
block-
blocking the back of the structure, of the existing structure.
Okay.
And I think
Well, the elevation of the brick coping was the main thing that stuck out in response to the Interior Secretary's comment that it should be clearly visible that it's a different structure. But I get what you're saying, because you want to tie into your.
Yeah, and then we have height, necessities inside the building. Because between the drop ceiling and the roof, you gotta have so much space. So we can look at that, though.
Yeah, I think if you look at that and it's not enough room,
Mhm.
then we could probably suggest going a little bit higher. Though it would
Okay.
block, I mean, we're talking about blocking probably 51 feet of the old structure.
Right.
And I also wonder, it has to be, does it have to be attached to the old structure? Is that, I'd be concerned about, one of the standards is if you ever had to take that structure away, you don't want to have any impacts on the current old structure.
Yeah, if we did, and that's a big if. I think you can restore those areas where we're connecting.
Protecting.
Yeah, and I think I shared with you during the work session. That's cinder block. Those aren't adobe walls we're connecting to. that was construction done in the 70s and,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
I don't remember.
Oh, okay, I thought I did. I'm sorry.
I just don't
Yeah,
remember. So that's not an Adobe wall?
no,
That wing, that's.
no, yeah, that whole wing is an Adobe.
Thanks.
Yeah, another possibility would be, instead of having the coping up there, whatever height it's at, to make room for utilities and what have you, piping, insulation. It would seem like we'd rather see it kind of the whole building is territorial. is
Yes.
What I'm understanding.
Yes,
And I know some of the windows aren't, they don't match some of the
Right.
windows in the whole structure.
right,
A lot of them do.
right.
And
A lot of
so
them don't.
the coping up there, I think it's categorized as a territorial design. So I would wonder, and I'm not an expert on this, but I would wonder to make it different, rather than having the coping up there, whether it's higher or lower than the existing roof, is it would be more of a Pueblo style. Yeah.
It's a possibility.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I would just, like I said, I would like to, and another thing would be, and I kind of question this, is if it could be a slightly different color than the main building. I don't know. It's a lot of subjection. So, but again, if your architect could take a look at the standards and be familiar with that, then
Yeah,
you could come up with.
and maybe what I need to do is sit down with the historical folks too and really understand how far we can go one way or the other with some of these ideas you all are sharing with me, and we can have a little better conversation the next time. But my perspective, you've got a building that's been there for many, many years, and it's really a series of Adobe buildings connected over time. It's hard to figure what period of time we want to replicate. And I think discussions in this room over the years has been, what window constitutes the historical nature of the building, right? Which one do I need to replicate? And we can never come up to a conclusion because we just covered so many moments in the history of that building. So perhaps what we need to do is just get some clarity from the historical folks, and then I can bring that back to you.
Yeah, I did have a conversation because just wanted to inform myself about this issue, and I did have a conversation with Michael Taylor, and he used to be the SHPO.
Yeah.
And he had some pretty good ideas.
Oh, good.
That he could share, and
Good.
kind of along the lines of what we're talking about here. And I also talked to Pat Taylor a little bit, but not much of a conversation with him, and kind of along the lines of in past projects that, I know it's subjective, but it's kind of hard to say, okay, how much difference do we need to make it and still be compatible with?
Yeah.
It's a fine line.
Certainly he's done some construction enough around the plaza to
Yeah.
where he maybe can give me some
Yeah,
ideas.
I think
'cause
that'd be good.
a lot of what he's done looks pretty familiar, pretty similar.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I'd be curious.
And we do want to make it similar, but
Yeah.
that
just enough.
distinction between old and new.
Yeah. Got it.
And I went ahead and ordered the book after a conversation with Michael Taylor. There's a book out, and I ordered it. It's you probably know about this. It's titled La Posta, and it's from when it was the Corn Exchange Hotel.
Yes. Yes.
I'm real curious about that. So, and then up till present day, what Michael told me and made a lot of sense. He says, because I asked him about what's the period of significance for buildings. I mean, a lot of buildings have been changing over time.
Right.
And of course, Michael Taylor and his crew went ahead and did the register, and it was late 79 or so. But he told me, he says, you got to look at the La Posta as it's such a significant building for bringing tourism in here. And tourism is so huge in this town. And I compliment you for that.
Yeah, we tried both inside and outside to retain, from our perspective, the historical appropriateness of the building. We were one of the first ones to do the major remodel of the interior. under the new guidelines that you all have
Okay.
for keeping an eye on what the interior looks like. And it's hard to take an old residence or any building and make it into a restaurant. When you have penetration issues, you can only do this much to a wall or that much to a wall. So, we've been very, very sensitive to that. And I think our work over the years reflects that.
Yeah, I agree. It's, just the times I've been in that building, I'm pretty impressed with
Yeah,
the turnout.
there's a lot going on.
Oh, yeah, there is a lot going on.
I like your structures on kitty corner.
Oh, you're Katie's Corner? Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
I personally, I like this because, my great uncle had the Gallegos Winery.
Oh, yes.
So I'm very familiar with the building, and this to me is very significantly different than what's going on back here. And so I can see the old part and I can see the new part, but it's because our family had history there, but I like it.
Thanks.
So Eddie, I guess I'll ask you this question. I do have other comments on the rest of the proposal, but is this a good time or later for a condition to just make sure they adhere to
Well, I think,
the code?
I think it's up to you, Mr. Chair, but I think for confused, not to get the whole panel is there could be another conditions that might controverse your condition. I think it'd be good to have the discussion
On
the whole thing,
Okay.
and then once finished is considered for approval with any condition that you might have.
Yes.
At what point does this go for review by public fire and CID?
Yeah, that was I was going to wait for my turn to kind of jump on to that. There was as the commission is aware, we do an internal review by some department heads and also by CID and myself. One of the or two actually, Mr. Maese and the fire chief was not able to consider review for this because there were no initial plans submitted. Right. So it doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. It means that they can't give you the information because they have no paperwork in front of them to supply. So one of the things that I talked to them about is there were concerns that their comments weren't going to be heard, and most definitely that's not ever going to happen. So if the condition is to approve, will be a condition to approve to meet all the standards and all those obviously plans Mr. Hutchinson needs to submit in order for that to happen.
Comments? Okay, maybe we'll switch now to the other structures out in the landscape. And I know most of it's predicated on numbers of signs.
Yeah.
Because obviously a lot of the signs that are already up there were prior to the 2008 code for signs. And so there's some latitude in that, but we're still concerned. I think there's a committee getting together to kind of address that code, the sign code, because we've had a lot of issues with sign codes. And the main issue is we just don't want to see a lot of proliferation of signs.
Yeah,
and I know it's happening.
Yeah.
So given that, what I'm kind of looking at this mock-up.
Yeah.
For the front of the building on the archway and what have you. I really like the notion of this archway and to make it cleaner, but I'm also real concerned about the existing sign in relationship to the power pole. I mean, there's only 6 feet apart, and it looks cluttered to me, especially if you're
for 85 years. Yeah, it's been cluttered for a while.
Yeah. I'm sure that sign is probably, the elevated sign is probably historic. It's been in there for more than 50 years.
It's certainly been there as long as I've owned the property. I can probably dig up pictures to where it dates back to probably the 60s.
That's right.
For that pole sign. I can't verify when that power pole was put up, but the pole
And
sign.
I think in the work session, if I remember it correctly, is I asked you a question about that. And I think as far as the power pole, I think you said, I don't know if you talked to EPE or whatever, but there's the distance between the other pole further down the road and the other pole up the road. It seems like they could probably take that pole out.
They can. At least I've been told by folks in the past.
Okay.
But it needs to be revisited.
Yeah.
But I didn't know how long that was going to take. You know, that could be an exercise that could last a long time, and then there's a cost issue. But yeah, I've been told early on in this project, and this was back in 2011, I think, when I first submitted these plans, that the distance between the adjacent poles was
Could allow for that.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And so, kind of continuing on along with that discussion, I think as far the curb cut's going to be right across from the diagonal on the roadway.
Correct.
And it seems like that's where we're putting everyone. The arch is going to be there. It's going to line up with the arch on the other side.
Yeah.
The parking lot. So, and I understand in the work session, your discussion saying the reason you want to put these arches up, so when people that aren't familiar with where La Posta is, they pull in off of Avenue de Mesilla, they see that nice sign that's right there, and they come into the parking lot, and maybe they park far enough away from there. It seems like the arch is a good visual for them to say, I need to go that way. In fact, it would seem like you have the La Posta sign on top of the arch on this side. It seems like you want it on the other side.
The updated versions of that show a different lettering above that.
Which shows,
Bienvenidos, no?
No, one says Bienvenidos, and the other says Katie's Corner.
Katie Corner here.
Right.
So I guess,
Now,
yeah,
on the other side, it
Right.
might make sense to put La Posta
that makes
entrance.
sense
Yeah.
in the parking lot.
But I wanted to reflect the discussion we did have regarding way too many La Posta, and I agree with that.
Yeah.
But where it does make
That makes
sense, to your
sense.
point, is on the other side, as people park on the north side of the parking lot. You know, what is that?
Yeah,
You and I know that La Posta's on the cat. You wouldn't believe how many people think Adventure Travel is a restaurant, and so. And I'm open to any ideas that might be to your pleasure, the board's pleasure, on terms of the signage. But Katie's Corner was something we wanted to do for the
I like that idea. In other words, if that could be on the east side,
it
or
would-
the west side.
on the west side. It'll be on the west
Katie's
side.
Corner, that
Yeah,
makes sense. And then
right.
we'll post on this side. And I would consider it, as far as talking about numbers of signs, I mean, it's a little bit confusing to me anyway in the code. We allow 2 signs per business, but I think that's signs on the building. And I think these are more monuments kind of signage, but
Or directional signage.
directional sign. But what I would suggest, I wouldn't count, I mean, that's your property, but it's not the immediate property where the restaurant is. So I don't know if the rest of the commission would agree with this, but I would say that would count as just one sign, a double-sided sign.
Mhm.
And you already got your sign on Avenue de Mesilla. So in my interpretation of the code, I think that's okay.
Okay.
But, you know, when I first saw the Katie's Corner, I'm going, how many people are gonna know what that means?
Well, you know, it's like a lot of monuments you see, forces you to get out of the car and go over, and we're gonna have a nice plaque on the wall, which we show right underneath the light, that'll explain her history.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, there'll be a nice description.
Informational plaque.
Exactly.
Okay.
One of those bronze plaques.
Yeah.
It'll have her picture etched in it, and
Oh, yeah, that's really appropriate, I think. And then also, what's that blue box? I think that's a utility box.
yeah, we'll see if we can get rid of that too. Oh, trust me, I'd love to get rid of that.
Okay. Because I looked over the wall and I go, oh, that's what that is.
Yeah, if we can get it moved, we will.
Okay, that's good. And so that does answer that question. Let's get back to the signage on the property where the
Okay.
restaurant is. And like I said, I think it seems so nice in the background where you got the walls and the arch and what have you, and then we've got these things right in front of it. I mean, it seems like an obstruction to me for ADA access and what have you, because I measured that and it's only like 6 feet between those poles. So if you could get that pole removed and in the future or whatever, I was wondering, I asked you during the work session,
Mhm.
would you consider taking that tall sign down?
I really don't want to.
Okay.
We could relocate it so it's coincidental with the wall if you wanted, but
That's,
that's a possibility.
you're
But
thinking right along the lines of what I was thinking about is obviously once you've gone through the parking area or once you've come down Perion, you see the signs of La Posta on the corner of
Yeah.
Perion and Guadalupe, and then you walk down there. You can't miss it. I mean, it seems like it's mostly for people that are in the parking area.
yeah,
So if you got two arches that are kind of portals that are directing you towards the restaurant, would you consider at least taking the pole down and putting this sign right up against the wall? as a
well, why not put
monument?
the wall right up, the pole right up against the wall?
Oh,
That's what I'm saying. Why don't you make it?
Away from the
Yeah,
historic marker.
yes. Keep the pole sign, but just move it to the wall, adjacent to the wall.
because it is a historic
You know,
sign.
I don't know if you define historic signs. I don't know if there's any code for that,
Criteria, yeah.
but it's been around.
Yeah,
It's been around a long time.
Usually it's 50 years or more.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. If it's
It's-
50 years or more, it's historic.
It's historic.
I have a comment though,
Yeah.
because that Tala Posta sign is viewed actually a little bit further away than you would see it if you're just driving down the crossroads.
Yes, it is.
And I think it helps attract people to like, oh, there's La Posta right there, because they see the sign up on top.
Yeah. You know, at one point in time, that was a two-way street. And so people, before there was a stoplight there, you would take a right down Pavillon and, you know,
There's still an arrow there on Avenue David C. It tells people to turn up there for Perry.
yeah,
That's one way.
yeah.
Maybe
Well, we know that every day.
maybe we could remove La Posta on the building then, because as I look at it, I see 3 signs just on that side.
Yeah,
There's
I
just
know.
2. La Posta and La
Um,
Posta.
There'd be a lot of art out there that have to be redone.
I didn't hear what you said.
She wanted to remove the one on the sign, on the building, right above, almost right above the entrance. I would ask you to look at it from a different perspective.
Okay.
I
Um,
agree.
It's a building that doesn't quite fit in the box for your ordinance at all. It's 17,000 square feet. There's nothing in town that big that's of retail use. And I would just ask for some latitude on how many signs I can have versus trying to fit it into the ordinance. Yeah, really.
Yeah.
Because it is one of the most photographed front entrances of any building in town. It's the most painted of any besides Josephina's Gate. And so I would just be mindful of what that whole front looks like, and that we really just want to dress it up a little bit and make sure it's going to last for years and years. And really the architectural connection between the parking lots is primarily a safety issue more than anything else, right? For all the reasons you stated, it connects the 2 parking lots, not physically, but architecturally. And it does make a little bit more prominent that diagonal crosswalk that we continue to have to repaint because for some reason that paint just keeps going away there. But there's a lot of people that walk across there. And, you know, to the credit of the former Messiah Marshal and fire chief many, many years ago, we didn't have a stop sign there for years at Pavillon and St. Albino. There was not a stop sign. That was a tough corner to cross.
Mr. Salazar, the code says 2 signs, so, you know, we were not really able to deviate for other businesses. Are we making exceptions? Because I think if it says 2, then we need to stay with 2.
That is correct. I think there is, you know, again, when the code is written, it's written in the terms to a normal case by the building with the directory and such, right? But, you know, there is also a case that the applicant is making because it's the size of that, but it's still considered under the code one business, something that we need to visit. And I think it's also something maybe to kind of have win-win on both ends, I think. If you saw my notices, there is a notice out already for a public hearing to amend our signage ordinance that would also probably include some of the situations that Mr. Hutchison could have. So I think maybe in this case, in order for consideration for approval, is for him to accept not having that signage up there until the proposed amendment for the signage could at that point allow him to put that sign up there. But at this point, only having 2 signs per business is what our code dictates.
Since that property is separate from the main restaurant, the parking, if it said La Posta parking, then that could have 2 signs, I would think, because it's 2 separate properties.
If they're 2 separate properties, that'll be two separate 2 and 2 on each side.
There's already a sign on the wall across from your facility, in the parking area on the west side, a little wall there, it says parking only for.
Yeah, but those kinds of signs under a code, believe it or not, for parking are directional signs, and they're not considered to be part of the 2 signs that are allowed per business.
In other words, there are different descriptions of monument signs, directional signs, and whatever. So that's why I get a little confused about if we're just saying 2 signs per facility. I kind of go to, those are signs on the wall. Maybe that's wrong.
When you talk about monumental signs, there is a section under our code on signage. It's under exceptions, and it says if any sign has historical value to the building itself, that's what we're probably referring to. It's not considered to be part of the 2 as well. It's considered to kind of like Billy the Kid has the big old yellow one, and he has other signage. So those signs, if it's considered to be historical value to the property, such as the freestanding sign or maybe the signage that's on the building itself, because it's been in pictures for so long, that could also be considered a historical sign or significant for the building. And again, would not be contributing to the 2 signs that he would be allowed to have.
And realize that you're on 3 roads. So
2 blocks.
So I'm just kind of ignoring the signs.
Yeah.
On the,
You
as
know,
far as the count goes, as
Yeah.
far as Guadalupe.
Yeah.
And even coming around the corner on Perion, you've got that on the
Right.
wall.
Yeah.
Post up, which is all good, because when people are approaching it from the plaza, they have a good opportunity to say, well, this is La Posta. This is
Right.
what I want.
Right.
But I think part of the issue that I'm bringing up about the numbers of signs and what have you is, it's got section 1865070, and it's exceptions. And it talks about, let's see, the provisions and regulations for these guidelines shall not be applied to temporary signs or following signs, provided however that the exception is for pre-existing signs, I'm reading the wrong section. Pre-existing signs for the code. And they're exceptions as far as, but it also says it allows you, unless that business changes, someone moves out, it's kind of fair game to kind of go back to the code. And it also says if the code was written, well, in this case, the code was written in 2008, you can wait 5 years out and then have an opportunity to kind of make some adjustments. So that's kind of what.
Point of order, because I think we're just talking about, we're just talking about the construction of an exit and exit. We're not exit and entry. We're not talking about any signs on his.
I think.
Well, it's on the. Why did he send all these? I mean, he's talking about putting signs on these arches and what have you.
Request is for them.
Well, read up the,
Excuse me?
let me look at the write-up.
May I make a comment?
Yeah, go ahead.
Some of the, I think what you're being hit with is a little while ago, we dealt with the gas station.
Right.
Yeah.
And I went to the Board of Trustees meeting after we approved or discussed this gas station, and they made us look like idiots because they said there's 16 signs up there. And they totally ignored the fact that several of them, or a lot of them, were logos.
Yeah,
So, and that you could argue is a totally different structure at the end of town. And that's why I think we really have to get our signage ordinance put together. And I like Eddie's idea that the permanent one, I think, should stay. But, we'll work this out as we approach, final plans.
right.
But that's where my sensitivity is.
Yeah, I heard about that too. Yeah. Again, I think what we're talking about today is not adding any new sign, La Posta signs, right? What we might be suggesting is La Posta parking in one spot, Katie's Corner on the other side of that, Bienvenidos on one side, and maybe Adios on the other side. So I'm not really putting any more La Posta signs up other than maybe the one directional La Posta sign. And again, there's a lot of history that goes into how those other signs were there, and even before my time.
Yeah, yeah.
I'd hate for us to kind of go back and as the board of trustees and, kind of say, hey,
Well, one of the things, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Is definitely, as already from a previous case, right, we're talking about the gas station. Definitely, we cannot approve a request that the code specifically says you're only allowed to have 2 signs. If they want to have more than 2 signs, it's something that needs, because after this recommendation to approve, it still needs to go to the board of trustees, and we're going to have the same outcome, right? So the question is going to be, all right, do we determine what is considered to be a sign, right? So for one, I don't think the freestanding sign has been there for a long time, should be considered part of the 2 signs that are allowed. Okay, that's what other 2 signs are there in the building that doesn't allow him to have bienvenidos y adios? Is that considered to be a sign? Do you all want to consider to be bienvenidos, welcome to your restaurant, and adios being a sign? If that's not a sign, so that should be taken off the table as part of being one of the 2 signs, or two signs of the Katie's Corners on the opposite side, on the other side. So that in itself has its own parcel, therefore meets all the requirements. So what exactly is he not meeting when it comes to signage on the proposed request? You know what I mean? And so you can only have 2. He's not adding, he mentioned he's not adding any 2. We cannot say, yeah, you can have more than 2, including bienvenidos and adios, because that would be obviously breaking the code. And we don't want to do that. We don't want to set precedent. We need to look at it in a different way, saying, does adios and bienvenidos really consider to be a sign? And if the commission feels that or not, then obviously he does meet the requirements of the code.
Right.
I do know is there are exceptions in the code. If we want to spend time to review them, we can.
Right.
There are exceptions in the code when it says it comes to like directional signs, as Mr. Hutchinson mentioned. Those are more for open, close, parking over here, do not park. Those are not considered to be signs,
Right.
part of the 2 signs that are allowed. That's more of a directional sign. So bienvenido and adios, it could be just a greeting, could be just part of that directional. I don't think it's, again, specifically can title it. Exactly.
I think mostly
I don't think you can title it
mostly
to be
signs are
specific.
from the standpoint of saying what facility is there.
Correct.
yeah.
So that makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean,
So now if it says La Posta, obviously that is a sign.
Yeah.
Right. And if he has a sign that says La Posta, that should be considered a one.
Yeah.
But how many La Posta signs does he have on his property? Right.
Yeah.
He's not requesting to put any more. He's only requesting to put maybe a couple of directional signs, and across the street, another,
Okay.
monument, I do want to call it, a sign for the parking.
Comments?
Did we talk about if it was okay to move the freestanding sign against the wall to allow some more clearance for,
With the hope we
customers
get
and whatnot?
that power.
I think we done.
Yeah, I would certainly consider that, if you'd like.
And then you'll probably look
I have
at,
the same concern too. There's a lot of obstacles.
Yeah.
And, we're trying to take a corner and dress it up that's been there a long time.
Yeah, it
And,
needs it.
A long time ago, it made sense. And,
Yeah.
let's try to mitigate its lack of functional use now with something that makes more sense without, as long as we try to retain the character of the property.
Right.
And so I think we're all on the same page.
Yeah,
We're all
I think so
saying
too. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. So again, based on the the write-up and what have you, in the proposal, we're not addressing signs? Is that what I'm, other than,
Addressing signs, say that again?
well, like Commissioner Vahil said, she doesn't think it's in the proposal to talk about signs. I was only talking about signs based on the arches and the number of signs.
Well, if it's relevant.
That were shown on the
Yeah.
mock-up.
Mr. Chair, it's your decision. I think because we are talking about signage, how many signs you can have on the property,
Right.
I think our discussion was relevant.
Okay.
But I mean, if she needs an explanation from that, we can obviously give that explanation. But again, it's your decision to either move forward or go from there.
Yeah, I'd like to go ahead and talk about these signs.
Okay.
Go ahead and include them.
It seems like we've talked about signs for 20 minutes. What more is there to say?
But included in the proposal.
Oh.
She mentioned it's not really in the write-up here about signs.
So we are talking about the two directional signs, I guess, as we're calling them, bienvenidos and adios. And we are also talking about the sign on the opposite, on the parking lot itself. Because the freestanding sign is considered an historic sign and there is an exception to the code. What other discussion do you like to have on signage?
Well, I think it was mentioned that should we wait until this group gets together and revise the sign plan?
I think that one, what was mentioned is Commissioner Miller mentioned that she
Right.
wanted the signage removed from the building. If you look at one of the ones, renderings was one of the pictures on top behind, it says La Posta on that corner. Is that what you were talking about, right? It's to remove that because we have already had enough signage. And that's when I suggested we wait till our ordinance goes into play because that might be allowable back then. As of now, we can't allow more than 2 signs on the property.
Considering the tall standing one historical, then we only really have the one sign in front and the one on the side, so you still have 2 signs.
Correct. It's only 2 signs. Yeah.
I agree. You know, I was confused by one of the renderings. where-
So that should be okay.
Yeah.
So the
okay.
ones that Commissioner Miller should be okay.
On the archway and then this overhead sign.
Yeah.
You know, and the job, it's difficult for you all, obviously, and it's tough for us retailers and building owners in the SIA because those signs have been there for a long time and were approved at some point in time by this
sure,
board.
sure.
And the Board of Trustees. And what really gets us a little aggravated is when we get a new board with a different interpretation or, you know, or they weren't there for the discussion that involved the variance.
Yeah, yeah.
That creates some uncertainty, cost and whatever. And I think that's why we need to, I'm not here to give you all advice, but
Yeah.
you know, it did go through a process of Susan was there, Susan Kruger was there for many of those meetings and we got it resolved to where everybody was happy. At what point do we don't revisit those decisions?
Right.
And I'm just saying, let's be mindful of that as well as we go forward,
Thank you.
because those are pretty important.
Appreciate that. So is the commission, are we talking about just, in this case, moving that one sign so it's out of the way of the entryway into the portal?
Yeah, I would certainly entertain
Kinda like
that.
that idea.
If you all would like me to look into that, I could certainly do that.
Yeah, and I guess also, do we want to address the other portal on the other side of in the parking area to have, we'd say that's a single sign or monument sign or directional sign.
A parking lot sign?
Yeah, the parking lot sign.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it makes more sense to put the La Posta on the east side and then also Katie's corner on the.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean that.
If that's okay with you all, that was one way we can mitigate the number of La Posta signs.
Yeah. So any more discussion?
I would like as a condition, and I'm asking for this, let me visit with Hippo before we even Shippo, I'm sorry, what did I say? Hippo? Shippo. Because we're just going to be spinning wheels if we don't understand what their allowance is for what change means.
Right.
And I can take some of your ideas and run it by them and see if that qualifies.
Okay.
I believe, Mr. Chair, I believe Miss Liana Aguirre already, I mean, she is our historic specialist, right? She is here for comment. Also, I think she did already reached out to SHPO for that. And then if you wish, she can give her comments on or what she found.
Yeah, I think
Please.
the majority, you touched upon the majority of the points, but it does have to be, it can't be larger in size. It has to be smaller in size. It has to be somewhat of a different, it can be a different color, but within the similar, like eggshell versus white, it can be, but it has to be differentiated. It just has to be so that we already mentioned that if it's removed from the main structure, even if it's built in the 70s, if it's built, that's still historic at this point. That it would still also need to be, just be able to remove that if need be in the future. But really just so that it's not confused of what part of the building is historic.
It's old and new, yeah.
and what's new, yeah.
Does it say how low? Could it be an inch? Could it be
No, it can be, it just has to be
different? Got
And
it.
what I'll do is I'll give you the standards, I have an awesome printout of the standards.
Okay.
I'll be able to give this to you, so you can get a better idea.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's really, it's significant. Like you mentioned, it could be an inch, could be 2 inches, and that's probably should be enough to differentiate that. And also, as far as being able to, if you want a demolition, that addition in the future and not damage that is more for structural integrity. Now, of course, you're gonna probably damage the stucco and you're gonna damage the paint and stuff like that. But you don't want to attach that addition to be that a load bearing wall of some sort, to where later on you're gonna take it off and that historic
words, it's
structure.
not a common
It's
wall.
gonna
It's a
exactly.
separate-
So
yeah.
I mean, as far as being able to remove it, I mean, yeah, he could probably plaster or cement it, and as long as it doesn't exactly affect the structural integrity of the historic building structure, we should be fine.
Yeah. So are we pretty clear about what we're considering and voting on? So,
Okay, so when I come back next time, then we'll understand what the building needs to look like a little bit better. Is that
We actually coming back, you won't need to come back to the
P&Z?
commission. Now, what my understanding is the approval consideration is going to be with some conditions.
Right.
And then
Right.
from here on out, you're not having to come back. It will be a recommendation to the board of trustees for final approval.
Even for the new design building, the building?
Again, it's up to you. I think the proposal is going to be, can you have that addition on that corner of the property?
Yeah.
And then there shouldn't be reason that I can't see you shouldn't, right? So, but the building plans and the fire codes and all that stuff, obviously, like any other plans, need to be reviewed by the proper agencies to meet all their codes. I mean, that would be.
Would it be necessary to have another work session with us before we vote on the actual structure, what the design is going to be?
Or another thing could be also, maybe that addition could be totally a different permit process.
Okay,
Right?
yeah.
If the commission feels more comfortable, so Mr. Hutchinson can move forward on the rest of the stuff and not have that addition, little hiccups or questions stop him from getting, started.
Yeah, I think-
Ideally would be, to approve it all today with those conditions, but you can't approve it today, then have work sessions afterwards, right? I think the
Right,
work
right, right.
sessions, I mean, what will come out of those work sessions will be everything that fire code would require, which is not in our code. It's
Yeah.
not on your code to
Right,
make
right.
those decisions. So it's really not something
CID
that
and all that.
that work session would do us any good, honestly.
That's true.
That's just my recommendation.
That's true. So
See the mock-up as, once it goes to the engineer and gets it all done, we're out of the loop. then?
Well, the visuals that you saw today, that is what he's proposing, right? With the fountain and such. How the building code is going to be followed to be able to give us that. That's not in our discretion because we're not experts in reading plans and such. But as long as that's why they call it zoning permit. It's not a building permit. The zoning
Right.
permit is it allowed in this zone and does it meet the
And it
design
is.
standards for the community? As far as how it's being built and such, that's our responsibility for another agency that honestly we don't have that experience to be able to make those determinations.
well, when I started the conversation about that, I think that was in my mind, kind of the unfortunate part of the mock-up. In other words, you could have just shown on an aerial, this is where I want to have my addition. And then we'd say, okay, it's gonna have to meet the standards for the, it's just, when I looked at that, it was just so similar, identical almost. And I thought it was a little bit, I'm not an architect, but I worked with a lot of architects. And it just looked like that wall was pretty busy. It had 2 windows, a fountain, a door. And it's like only 27 feet long. So it seemed kind of busy to me from an architecture standpoint.
And another thing also could be, to your point, Mr. Chair, is, the applicant really doesn't know yet what he wants to do.
Exactly.
So anytime if he does decide to be part of the kitchen, that still needs to be gone through the process, right?
Sure.
So, again, the original plan right now is for his consider to approve with the visual conceptual part of where everything's going to be located. But whenever he decides what he wants to do with that addition, I think the condition can be he needs to come back and say, okay, these are the plans we finally decided what we're going to do with that addition.
So what you're saying is we're treating it as two proposals, right?
We can.
The groundwork, the arches and all that, that's one part.
Mhm.
The other part, it seems like we could remove it from this application and have him come again when he has the final.
Yeah, we can do that.
I think what we're doing is we're approving the fact that, yeah, you can have a new building attached to an old.
That's exactly what he
Basically,
wants.
that's what we're saying.
I think that's exactly what's fair. He wants to, before he puts all the money into the plans, and then some say, hey, these are the plans I want for my addition. And then he said, well, no, you can't do it. So he kind of wants, again, and any applicant tells me that, I want to feel that I'm approved before I make them. So the plans is for the whole parking lot to be able to build something there, providing he comes back with the plans once he decides, once he wants to. Good?
Yeah, no, you said it good, Eddie.
Okay. So now you got to repeat that. Now you want to make an amendment? If you make an amendment, then we got to vote twice, or again, we got to do it 2 votes because there's an amendment. Then we got to vote to the original as we did last time, or whoever made the first amendment can make a change on the amendment, so we don't have to. It's whoever. Let me get in here and see who this is. It was first motion by Commissioner Miller, second by Commissioner Gallegos.
Move that we accept the proposal as planned, and we are not concerned with the specifics of the building. We're giving approval for the building, for the plans to proceed.
Providing he comes back with the plans once he decides, once he wants to. Okay, do I get a second? Okay. Well, I think you're all there.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Have a green beer.
Okay, so that is, I'm afraid you can ask, is there any more discussion? No? Okay, we'll go ahead and take the vote. Commissioner Gallegos?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller? Yes. Mr. Chair Walkinshaw?
Yes.
Commissioner Alviar?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, motion passes 5-0.
Woo-hoo. All right. Thank you. Okay, we're down to C, which is PZHAC case 061964. It's submitted by 212310 Avenue de Garcia, submitted by Morgan Spitzer, requesting approval to put in 2 pergolas in zone HC. Do I have a motion to discuss?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, this application came in for a proposal to erect 2 pergolas/porches, depending how you want to look at it. It is for 2310 Avenida de Mesilla. It was submitted by Morgan Switzer. She is here tonight in case there are some questions arrive for her to answer that I can't. There's requesting again approval for this in a historic commercial zone. If you look at the plans, let me just give me a chance to pull those up. I left them over here.
Somewhere, there it is.
Okay, if you look at these plans, it is going to be a metal roof. It is going to be a metal roof. Um, it's on the south side of the building and also on the east side of the building, facing Avenida de Mesilla. The structures, if you look at the actual site plan, one of them is going to be 16 by 40. That's on the south side, and the one on the side of the Avenida, on the east side of Avenida de Mesilla, is 42 by 14 and a half. Also, if you notice that the one on the south side of the dwelling, on the renderings there's a picture there, is actually up to the property line. Okay. As mentioned before, in a historic commercial zone, it is allowed to have a structure up to the property line, providing there is a right of entry form submitted and on file. A previous case that we had before, I don't know if you all recall, there was a patio that was also on the property line or close to it. The right of entry form was already done at that time, so it's not required to. That's a permanent record for that property once that happens. The only thing is that the structure does need to be fire resistant. Right now, the pictures show lumber. I did speak to the applicant, but it will be made out of fire resistant material because it's within 3 feet.
Yeah.
If it was 7 feet from the property line, then it wouldn't need to be fire resistant. And I stand by for any questions.
Yeah, I do have a question as far as a couple questions actually. Where that 16 by 40 is, that's adjacent to the parking lot for La Posta, correct?
The one on the south side there?
South side. Well, the one where it's got the
Yes,
16
correct.
by 40.
Mhm.
So what would be the need for a right of entry other than it's in the code?
What would be the need?
What would be the need for right of entry?
The right of entry is actually been a mystery to me because this is the only place that I see. Right of entry is, to me, the way I read it is that it's an agreement between both parties that it's allowed to be, especially if they share the same structure, same wall, that they're both agreement that this wall is going to be between both properties, right? Because they're sharing responsibilities in a sense. Being up to the property line would consider. I'm thinking, and the code considers that to be just as a perimeter structure. So if you're within 3 feet, providing it's fire resistant, that is considered, the neighbor should be considered when that happens, because it's so close to his property. He might not want a barn, he might not want this on his property. So if they're taking him in consideration for his approval, that's why the right of entry are.
And doesn't it also include the fact that it's so close to that wall? There's a wall there, I believe. I don't know who owns that, if the wall's
Same
on
thing.
whose property. But the point is, if it's right on the property line, which it might be, it's access so they can get and repair that wall from either side.
Correct.
Okay.
That's another good point to look at.
reason
Yeah.
for it.
In case or if they want to put screws into the wall from its columns or whatever.
right.
Again, they have that agreement between both neighbors to do so.
And I guess I did have another question. It says in the board action form that the applicant, I think it said, well, maybe it's on the other form. It says there is the drainage plan. Well, the only thing I can see is it's all gutter. And it looks like on one of the drawings, it might even, it would be also the gutter from I think this one plan. It shows, it looks like a water container. In other words, it seems like it's already there.
It's like a
Yeah, I remember.
serving station.
On that side? Oh, yeah.
It's already there.
Well, I guess my question is, where do these gutters drain to? And you're supposed to keep the water on the property.
They go to the vegetation. We have a draining area in the front, and then they go to the.
So like
trees.
retention ponds and with.
Kinda like a French drain?
Trees.
Okay,
They
okay.
waters
Good.
the trees.
And of course, when you have that much roof space, that generates a lot of water when it does rain around here. And you think it's pretty well designed where it can retain that capacity? Okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah, because the way, when I looked at it, it does go into the gravel route of the plants, but any overflow from that, it goes into the street. It might take some gravel with
And
it,
that's
but
probably okay? from the
yeah, that's
city
part
standpoint?
of the drainage. When it comes to drainage, yeah, that's, to me, again, it would have to go through the CID review on this. You know, I think there is already signage. Mr. Maes, I think he did sign this one, so he did review it. So it would be up to him as far as when it comes to commercial drainage plan, if that would be adequate.
Okay.
And he signed it, and I wasn't here. I apologize. I was gone.
They
for
have
that.
to come up with that plan, right?
There
Or
has
at
to be
least
a drainage plan. in the
show it on
commercial-
the plans.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. That does answer that question. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
And just for clarification, it has no bearing, but can you tell me the difference between a pergola and a porch? Because this looks more like a porch to me.
That's why I added pergola / porch.
Oh, okay.
To me, a pergola is it's a structure without a roof, right? There's just beams. That's considered to be a pergola. Yeah, and then if you put like mesh or some sort, or even slats, that's not really considered, because it's not a closed roof. That's not really, it's considered, you get away with a lot of, you cannot get away, but it's a different parts of the building code. But a porch is a closed roof. It's considered to be a porch. But for the,
Yeah, it is.
well, sometimes because, I mean, pergolas also are designed with lumber and such, with a little bit more aesthetics to it than just 4 poles, whatnot. I think maybe that's what they meant. It's going to be a little bit more.
And my last
Yeah, go
question,
ahead.
Mr. Salazar, is, so there is an agreement already between the two owners, or that he has to get that?
They already have one from the previous case.
Good. Oh, very good. Thank
He's
you.
right here also.
Yeah.
Okay.
It so happens. Yeah, Eddie, one other comment, and it's more of education as far as as I understand, in the HR zone, which it's not, it's HC, and is you're supposed to leave 40% of your property open for rain to go into
Correct.
water and what have you. So, but it's not the case with HC. There's no language in that section.
No,
of the
unfortunately, there
code
isn't.
about 40%.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
And the reason why that is because you need to have at least 40% of dirt, in a sense, so the water can be absorbed on your property, and it doesn't create a flood down the.
Good. Thank you. Any more discussion? Straightforward. Okay, we're ready for a vote.
Ready for a vote? Okay. Let me just find my voting sheet. I apologize. There's so many. All right, Commissioner Gallegos? Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Chair Walkinshaw?
Yes.
Commissioner Villar?
Yes.
And Commissioner Vogel?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. All right, the next is PZHAC case 061966 at 2808 Snow Road, submitted by our mayor, Russell Hernandez. And it's requesting permission to repair a crack on the stucco wall, and he is in RA zone. And there's pictures in your packet about what that looks like. Need a motion to,
I move to discuss case 061966.
Second?
Was there a second I didn't catch? Okay. Got it.
yeah.
Sorry, thank you. If you look at it, it's a very simple renovation case. This one and the one after. It was submitted by Russell Hernandez, the mayor. And if you look at the pictures, it's pretty much self-explanatory. There's a big crack in his house. He wants to patch it up. He doesn't know if he needs to change the window structure there, the top half there. So until they take it apart. So the proposed or the request is to approve, including that in case he does have to do that.
To change the window.
Again, he didn't have to submit this one and the other one, but for the purpose of transparency, he wanted to make sure there wasn't any question that he wasn't following, the rules that we're implementing for everybody here in Messiah.
So like you said, normally that would be administrative.
And normally this would be
Part of our
something.
SOP. Yeah.
Correct.
Thank you.
And that's all I have. Like I said, I think, I'll stand by for any questions, but I feel it's pretty self-explanatory.
Does he, if he has to change that window out to repair, would the same window go back in place? Okay.
Yeah, that's just the frame on top of the window, actually. Yeah.
Any discussion?
Just to note that this property used to be my great grandparents' house that they built
Really?
a long time ago. The Frescas family.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So just very sentimental, and I'm glad that he's maintaining the
Maintain it.
home. Yeah.
Cool beans.
Yeah.
That's good history. You gotta be just a whole wealth of history of being here. Let me see. I think that's awesome.
Historian.
Had nothing to do with that. I was just born.
This is boring. Yeah.
All right, we're ready for the vote. All
Yes,
right,
sir.
Commissioner Gallegos. Yes. Commissioner Miller. Yes. Mr. Chair Walkinshaw.
Yes.
Commissioner Alvial. And Commissioner Mulvihill.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. All right, we're down to our last. Yes, it's P&Z case 061967. Like I said, it's not really- Yeah.
Get a motion?
I'll make a motion
Yeah.
to discuss that case 061967.
Motion to approve? Right, second?
Second.
All right, first motion to approve, Commissioner Miller, second by Commissioner Gallegos. Any discussion? Again, the same thing, it's just, the pictures is right there. I feel it's pretty self-explanatory, but I'll stand by for any questions. It's just a matter of him having
So it's replacing kind, or is it just
the door.
the door?
He's replacing
New
just,
door?
the new, you see the picture of the door there?
Yeah.
And he's just,
Existing. Oh, and here's the.
yes,
on the back.
correct.
Looks pretty well.
It looks pretty similar to what he has.
He doesn't have glass all the way.
Yeah,
down.
exactly.
So again, normally, would this be considered
Renovation of maintenance.
for our recommendation?
No, that would be something that I would be, and also not just because of that, it's because it's in the RF or the RA zone.
All right,
Yeah, usually those won't come to the commission.
because we normally approve those. Okay. All right. Discussion? Straightforward.
No, ready for the vote?
We're ready for the vote.
All right, Commissioner Gallegos,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Chair Walkinshaw,
Yes.
Commissioner Alviar, and Commissioner Mulvihill.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, motion passes 5-0.
All right, very good. So we are down to commissioners and staff comments. Any comments from the commissioners?
No comment?
Doesn't look like it.
The only comment that I have is just real quick. We do have some training coming up. I did have some copies. I believe I left them in my office. I'll make sure I bring them or email them to y'all about Robert's Rule of Order in case, there is a question as far as when do I make a motion, when I ask for a break. I mean, you can do all that stuff, right? Go to the bathroom or somewhere. But there is a list. It kind of breaks it down, summarizes it for that. But also there is some training coming up. I believe is at the end of this month, April, around April 20th. It is for the New Mexico League. We do have another. I will send out an email. If you can't access your email, please let me know so I can get that fixed because we do send a lot of information for that. But if you are interested in going, please register or let me know in advance. The sooner the better. We can always make sure we get them out there and not doing the last minute.
What date is it?
It's in April. I'll email you all. Just what it is in April 20 something. I believe it is.
And the location.
May?
May 21st.
Oh, it's May 21st. I thought it was in April. But it is a little early, but still, it's always, I thought it was a month in advance, but, no, it's gonna be in Taos? Yeah,
Yes.
Taos, New Mexico.
Do you have the meeting for, I think it's the 7th for our
The upcoming one?
legislative, or next, I think it's the 7th.
April 7th is our next, first Monday of the month.
Yeah, we're gonna have that at 5 o'clock versus before our regular meeting.
That's the plan. That's the
Okay.
plan to have that discussion.
And there's a person coming down for that, or it might be on.
I still don't know for sure, but I think somebody is coming down for,
But at 5 o'clock on
Yeah.
the 7th. Okay.
like I said, I'll
Yeah.
send that in.
Thank you.
Do you, are you able to get open to Messiah email? You can't anymore? Okay. How about you, Steve? Are you able to open the email that was set up for you for Messiah? You received anything? Okay, I'll double check that. All right. Thanks.
All right. I need a proposal or for leave, adjourn.
Second.
All right, Commissioner Gallegos?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller? Mr. Chair Walkinshaw?
Yes.
Commissioner LBR? And Commissioner Mulvihill? Is that a no? Oh, let's check. I'm like, what? Let's go home, adjourned.
So let's. Thank you, Mr. Salzar.
Lastly, y'all did receive the administrative approval list on your packet?
Yes, thank you very much.
Making sure.
Is it this? What is making that noise?